They were using mules, whereas today's architects, they got these huge earth-moving machines. And so back then, with the equipment that he had, he just had to utilize the lay of the land, and that's really what good architects and great architects would do.
Just amazing at like taking a piece of land and just carving out the best possible kind of golf hole that you could get out of that one stretch of land.
Mid-Pines actually started out as a tremendously challenging golf course. And there's lots of news articles and clippings from back then said it even eclipsed Pinehurst.
Mid-Pines originally was supposed to be kind of like a players club. Guys like Henry Phones, one of the designers of Oakmont, they came down here and played all the time. They knew their way around designing hard stuff. They're really good players. So when Mid-Pines was built, it was meant to be like kind of a torture chamber. And what he tried to do with the design was he made the fairways as wide as Pinehurst number 2. So they're very spacious, very playable. But instead of like on Pinehurst number 2, where you get outside the fairways and you have this swath of like 10, 15 happy yards on each side of sandy hardpan, you went at Mid-Pines straight into the junk. That's why I think it was called Mid-Pines. It's like you're either in the fairway or you're gone.
The golf course is phenomenal. Some of Ross's best work, just because of the strategy and the lay of the land, having the opportunity to restore it. It deserved it. It had such great bones, but it just kind of overgrown over the years. It was kind of fun to put the jigsaw puzzle back together. I had met Kyle. He was working for Coore Crenshaw at the time, working on Pinehurst number 2, and they would come over at night.
I was out there pretty much hour by hour on Pinehurst number 2, but it also opened the door for me to see the other golf courses around here that I really liked, and I really liked coming here to Mid-Pines because I could see what Ross's work looked like originally. It was like taking a step back in time to the photos that I'd find, but you could see the final float, as I call it. That's a term in construction for the detail finishing on the greens. You could still see what Mid-Pines looked like the day that it opened. I'd never met Kelly before, and I didn't know who he was originally. So he started kind of like picking my brain on stuff that I thought, and he eventually introduced himself as head and one of the owners and part of the group that ran these amazing places over here. We just became good friends, and Kelly was so much fun to talk about architecture with, and he really wants to do some kind of cool projects over here. He was always really intrigued by what we were doing. I'm like, I'm just going to do pro bono. I'm going to do some photoshops for him of what I think we could do out there.
I said to him, I said, well, what do you charge? He said, well, I don't know. I hadn't really thought that through. And then I ended up seeing Gil Hans. Kyle had also worked for Gil. I said, well, you think he's ready for his first one? And he said, you know what? He said, if you called me up, all I do is send that kid down there. Give him a shot.
So instead of just coming into the process being like, okay, let's look at the aerial, let's look at any old plans we have or anything like that, it wasn't just like kind of paint by numbers for me. I was able to immediately jump on a concept that I felt would work for what he was trying to accomplish out there, what would work for modern play and what made a lot of sense for play today, but also use a specific period of his work and the history of those golf courses that I felt fit for that specific property.
I'd always enjoy going over and watching Kyle because, he would just literally get off his machine and walk back, 100 or 150 yards and just kind of just sit there and look. That's what the artists do. They're painting their picture.
I knew what all the 35 stuff looked like, a little bit more dramatic than the mix and blend that we did on Pinehurst #2. I just looked at the photos. I'm like, that's really cool, and it works perfectly for the site because you have these big, beautiful vistas like the plateau that you're kind of coming down off of on one tee shot. Those big, like super flash face bunkers. I basically centered in on the 1935 and 36 period of his work, where it was just kind of that flashy sort of look that I know really in his heart. I think he really loved that. That's what he chose when he had the ultimate opportunity to do it.
We really wanted it to be kind of what Ross did. I mean, he used the sand that was right here. There's just a big hole over to the right of the 16th fairway, and that's where we got most of the sand, to do the work on the golf course.
We all really like the idea of really being really authentic to what was in his mind. Like, forget the Great Depression, forget the maintenance side of it. What was going to be really cool and what was going to look really spectacular. He was trying to accomplish what he appreciated from his days growing up on a British links, where you had all kinds of sandy areas like that. It was just created by the wind or by the goats and the sheep and the cows that were grazing out there. With Mid-Pines, we really wanted to nail that stuff because I wanted people to really be like, am I in a bunker or am I not in a bunker? How should I attack this line? I think it's a lot of fun to do. Even
when we were restoring the course here, what we were trying to do is get it so where you hit where Ross wanted you to hit it. And Kyle did a great job with, he knew what irons the guys were hitting into it and wanted to recreate that, the second shots that Ross originally designed.
Very little buffer before you get into those 100-foot pines, the concept he was trying to accomplish here. So taking that from the kind of the checkers level of the conversation up to chess, it is not by accident that of these par fives, the fifth hole, 6 right after it, and then 10, the landing zones are kind of obscured. He's just kind of screwing with you a little bit. You want to hit it close to the grassing lines out there for a good angle into the green. This par 5 in front of us, you can see front right opening of the green from here. You can see all the way to the green, and yet you can't see the right side of the landing zone where you'd like to hit it there. Further you progress with every 10 yards going to the left-hand side, the more that the ball, if you're trying to go for it in 2, it'll just skip off the front of the approach unless you're absolutely precise. You've got only like 4 or 5 yards where you can skip it up from the left-hand side of the fairway without running off the green and that side slope into the front right bunker. Whereas from this side, you have just so much more angle to try and slap it on up there. Ross is trying to get you to gamble a little bit, hit it to the sides of the fairway, next to this bunker and then native line over here. The strategy for somebody who's going to try and go home in 2 is try and get up this right-hand side. But notice this big bunker that's out in front of us by 70 yards where it starts, and there's about 100 plus on the other side, and there's yet another bunker up in the approach that really makes it tough to land it and stop it in between the 2 from this side of the fairway. In other words, if you're going to lay up, you really don't want to be coming in from this side. You got to just stop it on the dime before you run into that last bunker in the approach up there. There's some other little bumps and native grasses up there that defends that side. So the strategy, if you're going to play as a 3-shot hole as opposed to a 2, is completely different. You want to play to the far left-hand side of the fairway. If you're playing as a 3-shot hole, then you are kind of angled to go around that bunker that's right in front of us, and you have a nice little enclave of fairway that's in between the two sets of bunkers that's easily accessed from that side of the hole. Whereas over here, the trees are lapping down, the humps, the hollows, and the bumps, and the sandy areas on the right. It's just squeezing down on you. But you can't get the full advantages by just playing in the middle that you can by playing to each side. Come over to the right side of the fairway. You can see the false front that's between us and the green in that little dome plateau right out of the St. Andrews or Pinehurst Ep.2 or Dornicky sort of playbook. Just a very sharp little false front you can sit pins up on top of. Notice they actually went down a little bit leading up in the green to really hammer home that point of the skip up. But we've taken you to the spot where you'd really like to be coming in here. We can just angle it just past the bunker and get close to the pin without having to carry it. So you can see the advantage of having played down that left-hand side on the tee shot. You're angled nicely to hit it back in this little coffin corner, and all of a sudden the Red Sea's part in front of me up on the green there. So I just got a little 7-iron, and I'm just gonna try and skip it up the false front. You know, you could take a little aerial shot and try and just land it up there. If you go over, you got a pretty difficult little recovery shot coming back. Everything's really sloping hard away from you. Or if you stub this, you're gonna wind up in that deep bunker. Whereas if you aim a little bit to the right here, it will actually kick back and it'll kind of boomerang a little bit around off of that false front because of the angle that we're coming in from. Thin. Thin to win. There we go. So this is number 11 at Mid Pines, one of my all-time favorite par threes. One thing that I think is really cool about this hole is it shows off Ross's kind of go-to style on great green building here. He's always been building greens that are just like the perfect scale for the kind of club you're hitting in. They're never too small, they're never too big, they're like just right for these really demanding shots that he was trying to create. Obviously the famous domes and roll-offs and tight bow hollows around the greens that he made famous here, but he would usually use one contour within the green, just one, to make a bunch of really great pins around it. So you can see on the right-hand side of the green, there's a very pronounced ridge that comes off of the right-hand greenside bunker, mid-right of the green, and it goes all the way across to like 2/3 to middle of the green that propels a drawn shot. If you hit a draw at that contour, it'll bounce all the way to those pins that are along the edges of the bunkers. In other words, there's a covert advantage of playing a ball, a draw. Right, so here's the contour that we were discussing from back on the tees. It's no joke, it's pretty big. It's a long fetch of kicking slope. 16 yards of kicking space he gave you on this right-hand side that will propel the ball over towards the hole location, just like you saw me do there. I only hit just like a gentle little draw, so it got back to maybe 12 feet or so. If you really hit a good hard swing and draw off of there, it will bounce all the way to the hole location where it's at today. And little helping hand, this second contour, you get 16 yards of helping kick there. You have another 7 or 8 yards that will sweep balls to the left once you get all the way onto this side. So again, just fantastic use of a really great scale green. But if the pin's way over here behind this ridge, there's no way that you're gonna be able to hit a draw and it's gonna wind up getting close to this thing. You've gotta hit a straight shot, or even better, you gotta hit a fade coming into this single hole location right behind the spawn. When you get right down to it, there's a lot of space around the greens where players can miss the bunkers and get up and down. You know, from here you can putt, hit, bump and runs, and really be creative. You know, you can hit a flop shot if that's your most comfortable spot. You can go anywhere from a putter to a flop shot here. Just hit these really fun little shots. So the players also learn where and where not to miss around this green. You know, they'll realize that this back pin right here, this ain't too bad of a spot to be coming in. Now conversely, going to the front of the green, from right out in front there, yeah, you got a little 4-foot upslope you got to come up here, but from there, it's not the most difficult shot. Just a little uphill pitch or putt or bump and run or flop shot, whatever you want to hit. We're just comparing two tight most shots around the greens.
but it's teaching you where and where not to miss to each and every pin, and that's really the genius of his style. Some of the best holes are the ones where there's almost no bunkers around the green, and it's just the contours to teach you where to where and where not to miss. They scallop this out. You know, if they just left this on natural grade, it'd be up here. There wouldn't be any kind of false front. He scalloped it out, and then he pushed it back uphill. He did that over and over and over at Mid Pines, where they go down and then they go back up to really create these little false fronts. But conversely, if I come up short from this 3-foot hollow going to the back of the green, it's a pretty long shot, and the green is racing away when you get more than 3 feet past the hole. And now it's a really, really touchy little shot. I at least landed on this side of the ridge. I got a fighting chance, and still no.
As I've watched architecture during the course of my 20 plus year career now, as we've seen technology advance and for players to hit it further, we see them more and more just kind of ignoring the strategy. What is we've defined these days what people call the bomb and gouge strategy. The more that I've watched that, the more that I've realized, like, those holes like 13 at St. Andrews, where it's almost like forcing you to make a decision, not giving you the middle, giving you the wings, so you have to really make a conscientious decision. You're not going to ignore the strategy. You got to deal with it right out of the gates. I love that.
So number 12 at Mid Pines, really pound for pound my favorite hole out here. You hit a big sling and draw at the right-hand side of the hole, and it will just run and run and run down to the left, towards the left side of the fairway, where you have a great angle in to that narrow little green complex that's fronted by a bunker on the front right. I.e., if you're down to the left, you're really winding up with a really good angle into the green. So we see the landing zone down here, and it's going to become very apparent pretty quickly just how valuable it is to hit that draw that works its way down to the far left-hand side of the fairway, where you have a good angle into the green. Front right bunker, and then back left bunker. So from this side, it's become a very narrow, shallow little angle. You got to carry it over the front right bunker and stop it on a dime. And this is one of the most firm and difficult greens to hold for whatever reason. Not only is it sloping kind of the wrong direction, but it just seems to land hard on this green. There's some nuance within this beyond just standard basic architecture. I would have to land the ball basically right on the edge of the bunker, and if you land it mid-green, you better have a lot of spin on it or it's gonna roll off the back. But let's say you've hit a really good solid draw down this side. You've hit it really close to this feature on the left. You hit it within 10 yards of this little false bunker up this side. All of a sudden the Red Seas have parted here. You have all kinds of space to land it between you and the hole here. You can come up short and you're okay. You're not gonna wind up in the bunker. You're still guarding against going over though. As you can see, it looks even from here like it's a big fall off over the green. It is. So you can really see that Ross really tried to get this green sight dangling off the side over here. Now, just to throw in some nuance of what we worked on with this hole, to really try and make that strategy really sing. You'll notice on this side, as we get out into the sandy hardpan and the distressed turf areas over here, a lot of pretty good lies over here. You know, you might get stuck in the occasional wiregrass plant, but this just really isn't that nasty. One of the benefits that I had on this project is that a very veteran crew of shapers, but especially the finish crew. The gentleman that worked on the native grass plantings and all these areas worked for me on Pinehurst #2 as well. A gentleman by the name of Jose Villa, a fantastic finish guy. He'd planted thousands of the plants on Pinehurst #2, and he knew instinctively when I'd say, Jose, go thin on this area, because we want players to be aggressive of this side. We want them to try and hit this draw, hit as close as they can to the little false bunker up there and these native grasses. But by and large, we always wanted this to be very, very thin. Conversely, on the right-hand side of the fairway, as you can see the lie that I just gave myself there, seriously bad medicine there. The effect of this right to left slope, the ball being above your feet, doesn't affect you as much. You can hit a little straight shot from that side in there, whereas from over here on the steeper side of the fairway, very, very hard to hit a straight shot or the right trajectory kind of shot that will hold the green from this side. Its tendency is just to either like hood the shot and pull it, or for it to land really hard on the green or draw even worse. So really a lot of advantage to playing up that left-hand side. Better angle, better way to attack the slope. One of my all-time favorite Ross greens. As you can see, and we talked about from the fairway, it really slopes off hard and down to the left. You go off the back, bye-bye. It's gonna race all the way down the slope, and oftentimes it gets all the way to the straw or the sand down there, or into the kind of scraggly sort of distressed turf down there where you have a really thin, difficult shot from down there. He didn't give you no hope. There's one little contour that sweeps back up here that if you aim for that, if you're on the wrong side of the fairway, that right-hand side, you have an area where you can spin shots back off it. There's just a little bit of a cradling element if you're willing to take on the bunker itself. Conversely, notice how there's this little valley, this cleft at the far left of the green, where you lose your back support. Right there, the place where you would be bailing out, not carrying the bunker, it just sweeps you away with this little valley right here. Very cool contouring. He loved to take dirt and push it up to create a really nasty fall off the back. There's a cut that begins back where that stake is. Right in there, you can see this valley. They cut about 2.5 feet, and they just pushed all that dirt out. They took the bunker material here, the bunker's over there. Notice there's a hollow there and yet another hollow there. They got extra material to really amplify it. They cut out in the approach, pushed up the dirt, cut from that side and pushed up the dirt to really make this sharp crown that the hole is just falling off the backside. The green almost becomes like you're walking the plank, and then once you fall off, you're gone.
I just love the architecture that he was trying to create. You know, it's just such smart, intelligent architecture. So great for all skill sets of players, but especially what he was doing here, utilizing the native grasses and the sandy hardpan areas, the way that he used grassing lines to establish the strategy of the holes. You know, he didn't just rely on just bunker here, bunker there. So you have to learn where the spot is, and that's where I think it's just like an unbelievably fascinating golf course for the elite caliber player, because they're thinking in those terms.
You know, ultimately, I think Ross was the greatest architect there ever was, just because, you know, anybody can build a hard golf course, but it's very difficult to build a course that's challenging for the high-level player and yet fun. And I think Ross was the best at that.
I hope that people, when they come and play the golf courses, they're like, well, that one's just a little bit different. Not just the golf course, not just the landscape, but the styling that they're trying to do. What I've always wanted is I've really wanted to show off his tremendous creative ability.
All of us, as we move through life, we're just, I said, caretakers, or we're stewards of what you have, and our job is to leave it much better than what we found it. And so that's really what I'm trying to do. I think that while there's all kinds of new golf courses, and which is great, some of them are far different, you know, from our properties here. But the one thing that folks can't recreate is the history. I was a little nervous, you know, about whether the younger folks would embrace that history, and I find they actually almost embrace it more than the older generation. I think golf's in good hands with this next generation of golfers.